Why was the quiet girl from It the only one awake when the base began to die? Luna White sat under the dim blue glow of her monitor, lines of code scrolling past on the screen as if the machine itself were whispering secrets only she could hear. Outside her small, metal-walled office, the night was silent, too silent for a forward operating base in hostile territory. She should have been asleep. Everyone should have been. But habits formed in war die slow, and Luna hadn't slept easy in years. She told everyone she was just a civilian contractor, 28, introverted, there to maintain network systems and fix routers when the soldiers broke them. And she played that role perfectly. Messy hair, oversized hoodie, glasses with fake prescription lenses that made her look softer, smaller. The kind of person nobody would remember in a briefing photo. They didn't know about the 4 years she'd spent in the Marine Corps. They didn't know about the 2 combat deployments that had carved invisible scars deep into her. They didn't know that somewhere in a classified archive, her name sat next to a medal the world would never see, the Navy Cross. She walked away from it all, from the blood, from the missions that made her a weapon. She promised herself, never again. The job at Forward Operating Base Titan was supposed to be her way out. Quiet, safe, forgettable, just enough money to survive, just far enough away from the noise of home to feel like she was still doing something that mattered. That night, she was halfway through repairing the server's security patch when the first explosion hit. The floor jumped beneath her boots. Dust shook from the ceiling vents. Her cup of coffee toppled, spilling across the keyboard. The sound came again, a deep, gut-punching roar that didn't belong to random artillery. It was close, inside the wire. Luna froze for exactly 2 seconds. Then her body moved before her mind caught up. Instinct. Training. She dropped to the floor, away from the window, breathing slow, counting seconds between impacts. Her ears picked up details her conscious brain hadn't yet processed. The difference between incoming and outgoing fire. The hollow tremor of concrete hit by mortars. The faint echo of automatic weapons far too close for comfort. The base alarm blared, not the long single tone for incoming rounds. The staccato pattern, breach alarm. Her radio crackled to life on the desk, a voice screaming over gunfire. Tower 3 is down. Repeat, Tower 3 is down. Multiple insurgents inside the perimeter. This is not a drill. I say again, this is not a drill. Then static. Her hands were already moving. She yanked open the weapons locker at the back of the room, the one she'd helped install for the security guard who sometimes shared her space. She told herself she'd never open it for herself, but now she didn't hesitate. Inside, an M4 carbine, 4 magazines, a pistol, standard issue. Luna stared at the weapon, her heart hammering. Picking it up would mean becoming her old self again, the version of her she'd buried under layers of civilian normalcy. The Marine, the killer, the part of her that didn't hesitate when lives were on the line. Outside, a scream cut through the corridor, then gunfire, short, controlled bursts, followed by silence. Her jaw tightened, decision made. She pulled the M4 from the locker, checked the chamber with a movement so natural it felt like breathing. The weapon was clean, maintained, ready. Then she caught her reflection in the black mirror of the monitor. Messy hair, glasses, hoodie. She looked like someone who fixed passwords, not problems. She took off the glasses and tossed them on the desk, tied her hair back into a tight tactical bun, pulled off the hoodie, the symbol of her disguise, revealing a plain black shirt underneath. The woman in the reflection now wasn't an IT contractor. She was something else entirely. A Marine who tried to forget how to be one. She keyed her radio, switched to the emergency channel. Any station, this is White, server room vicinity. Situation. The reply came in bursts through static. White, get to bunker, overrun, they hit us with. Gunfire drowned out the rest. She moved, smooth, silent, calculated, years of training clicking back into place like the parts of a weapon reassembled under pressure. She hugged the walls, sweeping corners, muzzle steady, breath calm. Smoke filled the corridor ahead, thick and acrid. Emergency lights painted the world in flickering red, like the heartbeat of the dying base. Every door she passed could hide someone waiting. Every shadow could hold a rifle. At the main corridor junction, she heard voices, harsh, foreign dialects. Insurgents, room-to-room clearing, methodical, disciplined. They were searching for survivors or trophies. She waited until the first set of boots rounded the corner. 3 of them, focused forward, not expecting anything from behind. Luna raised her M4, 3 short bursts, controlled, 2 rounds each, center mass. They fell before they even realized the IT girl had a rifle. She exhaled once, moved on. Outside, chaos ruled. Tracer fire lit the sky like red lightning. Alarms screamed. Somewhere, a vehicle detonated, lighting up the compound. Through a window, Luna saw what they were doing, rounding up survivors in the courtyard. 6 soldiers on their knees, hands behind their heads. She felt her throat tighten. She'd been in that situation once, years ago, different desert, same cruelty. Her eyes flicked upward. The second floor of the admin building had line of sight to the courtyard. Good elevation, good cover. She sprinted for the stairs, her boots barely making sound on the metal grating. Each step felt heavier, not from fatigue but from memory. She reached the window and steadied her rifle on a desk. She counted 15 insurgents, too many for a direct rescue, but she didn't need to rescue. She needed to disrupt. Her breath slowed, her pulse vanished into focus. First shot the commander, identifiable by the way the others deferred to him. 2 rounds, chest, drop. Before his body hit the dirt, she shifted. RPG gunner about to aim at the command post. 2 more shots, down. Chaos erupted, shouts, wild gunfire, the captives dove for cover. Luna shifted position before they could locate her. 2 more insurgents down, then another. The courtyard turned into confusion. She reloaded, hands moving without thought. The screams below blended with the mechanical click of her reload. She picked off anyone who tried to shoot at the fleeing prisoners. The rifle clicked empty again, another reload. By the time her 4th mag was halfway spent, the captured soldiers had escaped, some grabbing fallen weapons, turning them back on their captors. Luna's single decision had changed the battle. She heard footsteps behind her, closer this time, insurgents sweeping the building. She ducked behind a wall, heart steady, eyes sharp. 3 came through the hallway, shouting to each other. She waited until the lead one cleared the corner. 1 controlled burst, his rifle clattered. The second dove for cover, spraying wildly. The third froze just long enough for her to fire again. She didn't stop to count bodies, didn't stop to think. Thinking got you killed. When the corridor was silent again, she moved up the stairwell to the roof. From there she saw the entire base, the chaos, the smoke, the red fire of muzzle flashes. Titan was bleeding. She spotted a pickup truck mounted with a heavy machine gun suppressing movement between the 2 main buildings. It was pinning down defenders, cutting them off from each other. She crouched behind a ventilation unit and steadied her rifle. The gunner was focused on Alpha Sector, blind to her. 1 clean shot. He dropped. The truck jerked to a stop, driver panicking. Luna put 5 rounds into the engine block. Flames burst. Her radio crackled again. Unknown friendly, this is Alpha Actual. Whoever's firing, you're saving lives. Identify. Luna hesitated. Revealing herself meant no more invisibility. This is White, she said finally. Civilian contractor, former Marine infantry. I'm on the admin roof with M4, limited ammo. A long pause, then. White, as in the IT contractor. Affirmative. Static, then a different tone, this one all business. White, we need overwatch for medical evac between Bravo and Alpha. We're pinned. Can you cover? Send coordinates, she replied. Luna shifted her position, checked her last mag, and took aim over the root. "On your mark," Morrison's voice came through. "Ready," she said. "Execute." Movement, soldiers carrying stretchers across open ground. Immediately, insurgent fire erupted from two positions. Luna didn't aim for kills this time. She aimed to make them duck. Suppressive fire, short bursts, forcing them to choose between shooting and surviving. It worked. The evacuation team made it through. The radio came alive again. "Good shooting, White. All personnel secure." She ejected the mag. "Empty, last one in." She reloaded. Hand steady, heart steady, mind quiet. For the first time in 18 months, she wasn't hiding behind a screen. She wasn't pretending to be harmless. She was back. And for better or worse, she remembered exactly how to survive. How many times can you become someone you swore you'd never be, before that becomes who you truly are? Smoke rolled across the rooftop like fog over a battlefield. The wind carried the acrid stench of burning fuel and cordite. Luna crouched behind the ventilation unit, the M4 warm against her gloves, empty magazine on the ground beside her boots. Down below, shouts in multiple languages mixed with the cough of automatic fire. The base was fracturing. Two pockets of resistance, rally points Alpha and Bravo, were holding, but everything in between had fallen. The command post was half collapsed, its antennas bent like broken fingers clawing at the night sky. Luna pressed her shoulder against the cold metal of the vent and checked her last magazine. 23 rounds, enough for one last act of defiance or one bad decision. Then she saw them, 6 insurgents moving in formation toward the admin building. They weren't rushing, they were hunting. She exhaled through her nose. Time to move. The stairwell door creaked open beneath her boots as she descended, her steps deliberate, the rhythm of her heartbeat syncing with the distant bursts of gunfire. She could feel the old version of herself, the Marine she buried, whispering in her mind. "Stay low, stay smart, use angles, kill clean." She didn't want to listen, but survival didn't care about feelings. At the second-floor landing, the metallic echo of boots climbed toward her. Luna flattened against the wall, muzzle raised. The first insurgent appeared, his rifle flashlight slicing through the smoke like a blade. He didn't even see her. 2 controlled shots. His body tumbled down the stairs, thudding hard against the metal railing. The others hesitated, exactly what she needed. She pivoted, fired 3 more rounds down the stairwell, then sprinted upward instead of down. Up was freedom, down was death. The roof access hatch clanged shut behind her. She scanned the horizon and then she saw it. The armory building 30 meters across the alley. Its lights flickered. Windows intact. That meant it hadn't been breached yet. And if it hadn't been breached, it still held everything the defenders needed. Weapons, ammo, hope. Her radio hissed alive. "Unknown friendly, Alpha Actual. We've got movement toward the armory. Insurgents setting up RPGs. Can you confirm?" "I see them," Luna replied, eyes narrowing on the glint of metal below. "RPG team, 3 men prepping for launch. Can you take the shot?" She almost laughed low, bitter. "Not from here, I'm dry, moving to intercept." The alley between buildings was open ground, exposed, no cover. She checked her rifle again, breathed once and jumped. Boots hit gravel. Pain shot up her legs, but she didn't stop. The sound of gunfire exploded behind her, rounds pinging off metal, chasing her shadow. She sprinted hard, firing short bursts over her shoulder, not aiming, just forcing them to duck. One bullet skimmed her arm, slicing through fabric, burning skin. She hit the armory wall, shoulder first, slammed the access card into the reader. Green light, the lock clicked. The door opened, and she slipped inside. It smelled like oil and metal and old dust. Racks of rifles gleamed faintly in the emergency lighting. For a split second, it felt like stepping into a memory, a place she'd once belonged. "Who's there?" a voice shouted. She raised her weapon. "Friendly, Contractor White from admin building, who's still alive." A soldier stepped out from behind a stack of ammo crates, rifle raised but not firing. When he saw her face, he blinked. "White, the IT tech." "Long story," she said, scanning the room. "How many?" "3 of us left," he said. "Rodriguez, armory staff. We've been holding here since the breach. They've been trying to get in for 10 minutes. "Then let's make sure they don't," Luna said, moving toward the window. She peeked through the cracked glass. Outside, the RPG team was setting up in the open. She dragged a table to the window, planted the M4 on it, and steadied her aim. "When I open up," she told Rodriguez, "they'll focus on me. Be ready to reinforce the east door if they flank." "White," he said quietly, still trying to process the transformation. "How the hell do you know all this? You're supposed to fix computers." "I did," she said. "Before that, I fixed problems that couldn't be debugged." Then she opened fire. The M4 spat flame and noise. The RPG gunner folded backward, weapon tumbling from his hands. His partners dove for cover, but too late. 2 more bursts, clean and efficient. Rodriguez's jaw tightened. "Jesus." Luna didn't look at him. "Start distributing ammo, I'll cover." He moved fast now, no more questions. Adrenaline had a way of clarifying things. The insurgents outside regrouped and started firing back. Bullets tore through the window frame. Glass exploded inward. Luna ducked, rolling to the side, swapped magazines. "They'll breach again," she said. "Main door, how many defensive points?" 3 entrances, Rodriguez said, crouching beside her. "We've got 1 guy at the west door, 1 covering the back. They're both low on ammo." "Not anymore," Luna said. "We're sitting on a gold mine." She scanned the racks. M249s, M240s, AT-4 rocket launchers, grenades, enough firepower to turn the tide of a war. Her pulse quickened, not with fear but recognition. The smell of oil, the feel of metal, it was all muscle memory. "This changes things," she murmured. She grabbed an M249 saw, slung it over her shoulder, and loaded the belt with practiced ease. "All right, Rodriguez, let's give them a night to remember." The roar of the M249 filled the armory like thunder. It chewed through the walls, through the air, through the men outside who'd thought they were the hunters. The heavy weapon vibrated in her arms, steady, rhythmic, alive. Shell casings clattered at her feet like brass rain. "White," Rodriguez yelled over the gunfire. "You're lighting them up." "Keep watching the flank," she shouted back. "They'll adapt fast." She wasn't wrong. Within minutes, the enemy shifted. Rounds hammered the other sides of the building. The west door trembled under impact. "They're going for breach," one of the soldiers yelled. "Hold it," Luna barked. "Short, controlled bursts. Make them think there's more of us." Rodriguez fired from his position, shouting into his radio. "Rally Point Alpha, we're still holding. Armory secure for now." "Copy that," came Captain Morrison's strained voice. "White, whatever you're doing in there, it's working. Their fire's thinning out across the line." Luna checked the sightlines again. She could see further north beyond the base wall. Movement, shadows, trucks, reinforcements. "Alpha Actual," she said into her mic. "Be advised, more insurgents inbound. 24, maybe more. They're staging outside the wire. This isn't over." "Copy, White. Can you interdict?" She turned to Rodriguez, eyes flicking toward the AT-4s stacked along the far wall. "Yes," she said simply. Luna slung the M249, grabbed an AT-4, and moved to the narrow firing window. She could see them, silhouettes gathering near vehicles, preparing to push in. She lined up the sights, breathed in once. The rocket whooshed out and struck dead center in the cluster of men. The explosion rolled across the sand, lighting the desert like sunrise. Rodriguez whooped, "Direct hit." She didn't celebrate, just reloaded, fired again. Another detonation. The reinforcements scattered like insects. The radio crackled. White, outstanding shooting. Reinforcements disrupted. You just bought us time. But Luna could feel the weight pressing down on her chest. Time wasn't victory. Not yet. She turned back to the soldiers. We can't just hold, they'll regroup. If we wait, we die. Rodriguez blinked. You suggesting what I think you're suggesting. Counterattack. He hesitated. Ma'am, we're 3 people and low on bodies. I've seen what happens when you wait for backup that never comes. Her tone softened for a second, eyes distant. We hit them now, while they're scared, while they think we're stronger than we are. Rodriguez nodded slowly, as if recognizing something old and dangerous in her. All right, what's the plan? Luna pointed to the map taped to the wall. We pin them here with heavy fire. Morrison pushes from Alpha. We roll their flank between us. You and your men hold a blocking position to cut off retreat. Fast, coordinated, brutal. Rodriguez stared. That's aggressive. It's survival, she said. The radio came alive again. Morrison's voice hesitant. White, you're talking about a full offensive. Yes, sir. Controlled, timed, coordinated. He was silent for a moment. Then, if this fails, we're exposed. If we stay put, she said quietly, we die in pieces. Silence, then Morrison's answer low and resolved. All right, on your signal. Luna checked her weapons. Loaded belts, prepped grenades. She felt calm, too calm, it scared her. The way violence made sense again. 30 seconds, she said. Her heart was a metronome. 10. 5. Execute, execute, execute. The armory roared to life. The M249 sang. The M240 joined in from the other window. 2 distinct rhythms of death echoing through concrete. She switched firing positions between bursts, creating the illusion of multiple machine guns. Outside, insurgents scattered, shouting orders, firing wildly into the darkness. That's when Alpha Squad charged. Luna saw them through the haze, 20 soldiers advancing in perfect coordination, firing, moving, shouting. The counterattack slammed into the insurgent flank like a wave of controlled fury. She threw grenades through shattered windows, each blast rocking the ground. Insurgents broke, some fled, some fell, some dropped their weapons and raised their hands. Within 10 minutes the shooting slowed, then stopped. Her finger finally released the trigger. Silence. The air stank of cordite, smoke, and something else, something heavier. Victory. The radio crackled softly. All stations, this is Alpha Actual, base secure. Repeat, base secure. Luna lowered the M249, hands trembling now that adrenaline was gone. Spent casings covered the floor like fallen leaves. Her breath came ragged, uneven. Rodriguez approached, eyes wide with a kind of awe she hated. White, I don't know what you were before tonight, but you just saved all of us. Luna stared at the weapon in her hands, the black steel, the smoke drifting from the barrel, the echo of every life she'd taken in the name of survival. Her voice was barely above a whisper. No one ever really leaves what they were, Rodriguez. They just hide it until the world forces them to remember. What happens when the killing stops? And the silence becomes louder than the gunfire ever was. Luna White sat alone in the command post, elbows resting on a desk still smeared with dust and blood. The air inside was thick, heavy with the metallic tang of spent rounds, fried circuits, and something harder to name. Outside, the base was quiet now, too quiet. No shouts, no shots, no chaos, just the steady hum of generators that somehow kept working, like they didn't care what had just happened. Hours earlier, she'd been the forgotten IT contractor who fixed computers and stayed out of everyone's way. Now, every surviving soldier on Titan base knew her name. She hated it. Captain Morrison's voice broke the silence. Final count, 15 insurgents confirmed KIA, 8 captured, remainder fled. Our side, 4 dead, 12 wounded. None critical thanks to your overwatch." He was standing across from her, posture straight but face drawn with exhaustion. His uniform was streaked with soot, his right sleeve torn, blood dried near the cuff. He gestured to the after-action map pinned against the wall. "You turned the tide, White. The moment you took that roof, the battle changed." Luna didn't look up. Her fingers brushed the edge of the desk, tracing the grooves left by bullets. "I didn't do it for glory, sir." "I know you didn't." He studied her for a moment. "When you applied for this contractor position, you didn't mention 4 years in the Corps, 2 deployments, infantry, Navy Cross, classified citation. You didn't even list basic combat training. Wasn't relevant to IT support." "Not relevant," he repeated, almost disbelieving. "You just executed a one-person counterinsurgency under blackout conditions." Her eyes lifted then, calm and tired. "Because if I hadn't, everyone in this base would be dead." The words hung between them, simple, unshakable truth. Morrison leaned back, crossing his arms. "I get it. You didn't ask for this, but you stepped up when it mattered. That's more than most." Luna didn't answer. Her mind wasn't in the room. It was back out there in the smoke and chaos, replaying every shot, every scream, every face she hadn't seen until it fell. When you're trained to survive, you don't stop to think. But when it's over, thinking is all you have left. She'd thought leaving the Marines would be her freedom. She'd thought silence meant peace. But silence, she realized, was just another kind of battlefield. "Ma'am," a soft voice said from the doorway. She turned. Corporal Davis stood there, one of the men she'd saved from execution. He still wore the same uniform, blood dried across the chest plate, eyes raw from sleeplessness. "Permission to speak freely." She nodded. "Ma'am, you saved my life. Those guys had us on our knees. I don't even know how you saw us, how you did what you did, but if you had," his voice broke, "I'd be in a ditch right now." Luna shifted uncomfortably. "You don't owe me anything, Corporal." "Yes, ma'am, I do," he said, voice trembling with quiet intensity. "You may think what you did was just instinct or training or whatever, but for us, it meant everything." She looked away. "Instinct is a polite word for something uglier." He frowned. "You call it ugly, I call it courage." Luna stood. "Courage doesn't keep you warm when you can't sleep at night." The room fell silent again. Captain Morrison cleared his throat. "That'll be all, Corporal." Davis hesitated, nodded respectfully to Luna and stepped out. When the door closed, Morrison exhaled. "He's right, you know. What you did was extraordinary." Luna's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "Extraordinary gets people killed. I used to be proud of being the best at what I did, until I realized what that meant." Morrison didn't press her. He just nodded slowly. "Get some rest. You've earned it." Rest, the word felt foreign. That night, Luna sat in her small contractor's quarters, staring at her reflection in the cracked mirror. The woman staring back looked different now, older, harder. The hoodie was gone, the glasses, the camouflage of normalcy. She tried to wash the blood off her hands, but even clean water couldn't scrub away the feel of the trigger against her skin. When she finally slept, she dreamed of gunfire and woke up in silence, drenched in sweat. Days passed, reinforcements arrived. The bodies were collected, the wounded medevaced, the command rebuilt. The story spread fast about the civilian contractor who'd turned the tide of the siege. Soldiers whispered when she walked past. Some saluted her by mistake. Some looked at her with fear. She'd become something she never wanted to be again, visible. One morning she got the summons, Command Post 900. When she walked in, Morrison was there, but he wasn't alone. 2 men in civilian clothes stood beside him, one older in his 50s, sharp suit, no insignia. The other younger, clean-cut, the kind of man who smiled without warmth. Between them sat a colonel with folders spread across the table. "Ms. White," the colonel said, "please have a seat." She remained standing. The older civilian smiled faintly. "We've reviewed your performance during the assault. Impressive doesn't begin to cover it." Luna's voice was flat. "Is this an investigation?" "Not exactly." The colonel opened one of the folders. "Marine Corps, 4 years, 2 deployments. Infantry specialist attached to Special Operations Units. Navy Cross, classified citation. Honorable discharge. Left the Corps immediately after your second tour." He glanced up. "Why?" Luna crossed her arms. "Because I got too good at something I hated." The younger civilian leaned forward. "You refused follow-up counseling, declined redeployment. You walked away without explanation." "I was done," she said simply. The older one nodded, studying her. "And yet when the base was attacked, that training didn't go away." "Training doesn't go away," she said softly. "It just waits." They exchanged a look, something unspoken passing between them. The colonel folded his hands. "We're not here to judge you. We're here because people like you are rare. People who can improvise under fire, operate independently, think tactically while everything collapses. We're forming a new unit, black-level clearance, deniable operations in territories where standard forces can't go." Luna's eyes narrowed. "You want me to kill people again, just with a different badge?" The younger man smirked. "We prefer the term Special Activities Officer." Morrison spoke quietly. "White, this isn't what it sounds like. You'd have cover identities, contractor credentials. You operate under full oversight. You'd be protecting people on your terms." "On my terms," she repeated, the words bitter. "You're offering me the same cage I escaped, just with better wallpaper." The older civilian leaned forward. "You can refuse, but let's be honest, you can't go back to fixing computers. Everyone on this base knows what you did. Your anonymity's gone. Sooner or later someone will want to use you. At least this way you choose who." Silence, only the low hum of the fluorescent lights. Luna stared at the floor, her jaw tight. "I left because violence was changing me, because I liked it more than I should have. You're asking me to step right back into it." Morrison met her eyes, "Or to step back into it with purpose." She looked up at him, something breaking quietly inside her. "Purpose doesn't make the blood easier to wash off." He didn't argue. The colonel slid a sealed envelope across the table. "Take 24 hours, think about it. If you accept, report back here at 900 tomorrow. If not, you walk away. No hard feelings." She didn't touch the envelope, just turned and left. Outside, the desert stretched out to the horizon, endless, unforgiving, quiet. The same landscape that had seen too many versions of her. She walked to the perimeter fence, the same breach where the enemy had poured through days ago. The sand still bore dark stains from the fight. She knelt, running her fingers through the dirt. It was coarse, dry, unremarkable, and yet it had soaked up so much pain. Somewhere in the distance, a helicopter lifted off. Its sound faded fast, leaving her alone with the wind. Who was she now? The IT contractor who'd wanted peace, or the Marine who only knew how to survive through violence? Maybe both, maybe neither. As the sun dipped below the horizon, she whispered to no one, "I can't keep pretending." That night she didn't sleep. She sat in her quarters, the envelope on the table. She didn't open it. She didn't need to. She already knew what was inside. When dawn came, she stood, dressed, tied her hair back. The same motion she'd done on the night of the attack, the motion that stripped away disguise. At 8:59, she walked back into the command post. The colonel looked up from his paperwork. "Your answer." "I'll do it," she said quietly, "but with conditions." He raised an eyebrow. "Name them." "I choose my missions. I get psychological support, and I don't become just a weapon again. I keep my humanity, even when the job requires inhumane things." The older civilian nodded. "Acceptable." "Then I'm in," she said. Morrison gave her a long, steady look, part pride, part sadness. "Welcome back to the fight, White." She didn't smile. It was never over. How do you hide a weapon in plain sight? You give it a name, a job, and a reason to exist. 6 months after the siege of Titan Base, Luna White had a new name on her badge, a new passport, and a smile she'd practiced in the mirror until it looked human. To the world, she was Myra Lane, logistics analyst for a shipping firm contracted through the Defense Department. To the handful of people who really knew her, she was an off-books asset assigned to Program Echelon 9, a deniable operations cell designed to solve problems before they ever reached headlines. She didn't think of herself as a spy. She was still the same woman who fixed systems when they broke. Only now, sometimes the systems were people. The port where she worked was in a humid coastal city, whose skyline glimmered with cranes and container stacks. Each day was the same choreography: cargo manifests, barcode scanners, small talk with dock workers, the smell of diesel hanging in the air. It was almost peaceful, if you ignored the undercurrent of corruption running through every container that left the pier. Luna noticed it on her third day. Manifest 471B, declared as machine parts, but the listed weight didn't match the dimensions. She checked another. Same pattern. Every few shipments, 500 kilos unaccounted for, bound for agricultural distributors that didn't exist. Most people would shrug. Paperwork errors happen. But Luna's gut whispered the truth she'd learned in blood. Nothing that doesn't make sense is ever harmless. That night, she sat in her rented apartment above a fruit stall, laptop open, tracing digital trails through layers of shell companies. The deeper she went, the darker it became. The containers weren't carrying spare parts, they were moving weapons. Military-grade rifles, RPGs, explosives, funneled through legitimate trade routes to insurgent buyers. She leaned back in the chair, staring at the ceiling fan turning slow in the humid air. Her mission profile had been clear: observe, report, don't engage. But sitting still had never been her strength. She sent a coded burst transmission to her handler, designated Orion. Pattern confirmed, trafficking hub embedded in port operations, possible ties to terrorist network Red Falcon, request guidance. The reply came minutes later, text flickering on her secure device. Maintain cover. Intelligence confirms risk of exposure. Extraction team on standby if compromised. Do not act without directive. She stared at the words for a long moment. Then she deleted them. Somewhere below her window, the port sirens groaned as another ship arrived in darkness. Men shouted in foreign tongues, forklifts whined. The world kept moving. And so did she. The next morning, Luna walked the container rows with a clipboard and a fake smile. The air smelled of sea salt and oil. She passed men she'd memorized by face and movement, who smoked when, who kept a hand too close to a concealed pistol, who avoided eye contact. One of them, a tall foreman named Halim, offered her tea from a chipped metal cup. She accepted, watching his eyes. Friendly, cautious, testing. "You work late, Miss Lane," he said, "always the last to leave." She smiled softly. "I like quiet hours. Computers behave better when no one's shouting." He chuckled, but his gaze lingered too long. That night, Luna placed a tracker under Halim's truck. By dawn, she knew where he went after his shift: a warehouse outside city limits with no business license and armed guards at the gate. She recorded everything: photos, times, routes. Sent another encrypted report. No response. Hours turned to days. The shipments continued. And every day, the silence from command grew heavier. Finally, she stopped asking permission. It was 200 hours when she slipped through the chain-link fence behind the warehouse. Rain fell hard, masking her steps. She wore the same dark jacket she'd worn at Titan Base, The fabric still smelled faintly of gunpowder and ghosted memory. Inside, floodlights cast long shadows across crates, stamped with the logo of her own company. She pried one open. Weapons wrapped in grease cloth. Serial numbers filed off. Footsteps approached, voices. She slid behind a stack of drums, silent. "Shipment leaves tomorrow," one man said in Arabic. "Falcon will pay double after last week's loss. The Americans lost a base, means they're desperate." Luna's breath caught. Falcon, the same network that had funded the Titan base assault. For a moment, everything in her went still. Then colder. The men passed. She slipped out unseen. By dawn, she'd mapped the entire route, where the weapons came from, where they were going, who signed the paperwork. It all led upward, to a man named Said Khoury, a local businessman with contracts across half the region, and an office guarded like a fortress. She didn't have authorization to touch him. She went anyway. His office sat above the port, windows tinted black against the sun. When Luna entered, she was still Myra Lane, clipboard in hand, nervous contractor here for audit clarification. The receptionist waved her through. Khoury was mid-call when she stepped in. He glanced up, irritation flashing before charm took over. "Miss Lane, yes, logistics audit." "Yes, sir." Her voice was calm, polite, perfectly harmless. He gestured to a chair. "Sit, we can resolve any discrepancies." She sat. The pistol under his desk didn't escape her notice. "Some shipments appear to have incorrect weights," she said, handing him a folder. He flipped it open, not really reading. "I assure you, all our paperwork is legitimate." "I'm sure it is," she replied, "but the problem isn't the paper." His brow furrowed. "Excuse me." She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "It's the content, Mr. Khoury. The crates, the ones you send to Red Falcon cells. You should really be more careful with your export logs." His smile froze. In the reflection of the window behind him, she saw his right hand drop toward the drawer. She moved first. Her left hand grabbed the edge of the desk, flipping it as she drew the compact pistol hidden under her jacket. Two muffled shots through the wood. He collapsed sideways, gun still half drawn. The silence afterward was deafening. Her earpiece crackled to life, Orion's voice sharp with panic. "White, abort. We were monitoring the feed. What the hell did you just do?" She stared at Khoury's body, then at the laptop still open on his desk, screens full of shipment data, account transfers, lists of buyers. "Finishing the job you wouldn't authorize," she said quietly. "Extraction team en route," Orion barked. "You're compromised." "Not yet," she said, disconnecting. She copied the files to a drive, wiped the computer, and was gone before the sirens reached the district. 2 days later, the entire weapons ring collapsed. Interagency task forces hit warehouses across 3 cities, seizing tons of armaments. The headlines spoke of anonymous intelligence tips. Luna stayed invisible, another ghost behind a fake name. When she finally debriefed with Orion, his expression was somewhere between fury and admiration. "You disobeyed a direct order," he said. "I stopped a war," she replied. "You got lucky. You expose yourself like that again, you're done." She met his stare. "Then maybe find someone else willing to sit still while people die." He sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "You think this is about bravery. It's about control. You lose that, you're a liability." "I didn't lose control," she said softly. "I found it." He studied her for a long moment, then slid a file across the table. "You've earned one thing, choice of next posting. Low visibility or high risk. Your call." She looked down at the file, coordinates, names, new identities waiting. The same cycle beginning again. Outside, rain hammered against the windows of the safe house. She could see her reflection faintly, hair tied back, eyes steady but distant. "Where's the line, Orion?" she asked quietly, "between doing good and becoming the thing you fight?" He didn't answer. He just closed the folder and said, "Lines move, White. That's why people like you exist." When he left, Luna remained seated, staring at her own hands. They looked clean now, washed and steady. But they were. She opened the window. The rain hit her face, cool, relentless. 6 months ago, she'd been invisible. Now, invisibility had become her camouflage again, but for different reasons. She wasn't running from who she was anymore. She was learning to live with it. And somewhere deep inside, a fragile truth began to form. That sometimes the people best equipped to stop monsters are the ones still trying not to become them. What happens when the ghosts you thought you buried start wearing new faces? Luna White, or Myra Lane, according to her current badge, watched the sunrise bleed across the mountains from the belly of a transport helicopter. The air smelled of fuel, dust, and anticipation. The rotors chopped the wind into sharp beats, drowning out everything but her thoughts. She wasn't alone this time. Across from her sat 6 soldiers in full kit, Alpha 9, a quick response team assigned to assist her new operation. They didn't look at her much. When they did, it was with the kind of curiosity usually reserved for ghosts or urban legends. Rumors travel faster than orders. By now, everyone in their circles had heard the story. The IT contractor who'd gone full auto at Titan Base. The soldier closest to her, Staff Sergeant Bishop, chewed gum with a slow, deliberate rhythm. He finally spoke over the roar of the engine. "So you're the famous computer girl, huh?" Luna looked at him calmly. "Depends who's asking." He grinned, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just trying to figure out if we're bringing a hacker or a hitman." "Neither," she said. "Just someone who's good at fixing problems." Another soldier chuckled. "That what they call it now?" The laughter died quickly when Luna's gaze met theirs. Steady, unblinking, the same kind of look that made men twice her size flinch without knowing why. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "Touchdown in 30. Welcome to Camp Raven." As the helicopter banked, the landscape spread below them, an arid valley cut by a river with a forward outpost nestled near the ridgeline. Rows of tents, a few armored vehicles, too quiet. They landed in a storm of dust. The moment Luna stepped off, the smell of sun-baked metal hit her. A familiar ache returned, the one that came before bad things happened. Captain Mason, Raven's co, met them at the pad. He was older, hard-edged, the kind of officer who carried his authority like a loaded sidearm. "Lane," he said, glancing at her credentials. "Or should I say White, I've read your file. Classified or not, that kind of record leaves footprints." "Then you know what I can do," Luna said. "I know what you did." His tone was even, but his eyes were cold. "Let's hope we won't need a repeat performance." She didn't answer. They moved to the briefing tent. Maps covered the walls, dotted with red markers along the northern border. "3 weeks ago," Mason began, "we lost contact with a research convoy en route to Outpost Kilo, 2 armored vehicles, 1 scientist, cargo classified. Last transmission mentioned ambush in this sector." He pointed to a valley road, marked with faded grid coordinates. "Your job," Mason said, looking at Luna, "is to track where that cargo went. You've got on-site access codes and satellite uplink. Alpha 9 will provide ground security." Bishop smirked. "So we babysit the contractor while she does her computer magic." Luna met his gaze without blinking. "You cover my back, I cover your odds of living through the night. Deal." That shut him up. They rolled out before dusk, 2 Humvees, dust trailing behind like ghosts. The terrain was brutal. Narrow ridges, blind corners, rock faces that could hide 100 rifles. Luna sat in the passenger seat of the lead vehicle, laptop balanced on her knees, antennae rigged through the sunroof. The signal flickered, static, interference, but enough. She was tracking something buried deep, encrypted signals bouncing between relay towers, too deliberate to be random. Picking up traffic, she murmured. Encrypted, military grade, but not ours. Bishop leaned forward, meaning someone's using high-bandwidth gear out here, not locals. Could be smugglers, one soldier offered. Luna shook her head. Smugglers don't spoof defense channels. The convoy slowed as they approached the valley pass. The setting sun turned everything copper. Her instincts screamed. "Stop the vehicles," she said. "What?" Mason's voice came over the radio. "Now." They stopped. The world went still. Then, crack! A bullet punched through the windshield, grazing the driver's shoulder. Contact 12 o'clock. The valley erupted in gunfire. Muzzle flashes burst from the ridge above. The first Humvee took a hit to the hood, smoke spewing. Luna dropped low, pulling the wounded driver down with her. "Stay down." Bishop and his men returned fire, moving with precision. But the ambushers were prepared, elevated, concealed, coordinated. "Ambush patterns too clean," Luna said between breaths. "They knew we were coming." Mason's voice over the radio was tense. "We're pinned. Any options?" Luna looked around. The terrain, the ridges, the way the echoes bounced. "Yeah," she said, unbuckling her harness. "Me." She grabbed her rifle and slipped out the side door before anyone could stop her. Bishop cursed. "She's moving up the flank. Is she insane?" "Probably," another muttered, laying down cover fire. Luna moved fast, low, silent, using every rock and shadow for cover. The noise of the firefight masked her approach. Halfway up the ridge, she saw them, 6 shooters dressed in mixed gear, not insurgents but mercenaries. Their rifles were too clean. Their comms headsets glinted under their helmets. She waited until one leaned out to reload. 2 rounds, center mass. He dropped without a sound. The others panicked, shouting, firing blindly downslope. Luna used it, moved position, took another, and another. By the time Bishop's team pushed up, the ridge was silent. He found her kneeling beside one of the bodies, checking the insignia on the man's shoulder. Not local militia, not terrorists, private military, Western gear. "What the hell is this?" he said. "Not who we were told to expect," Luna murmured. She found a patch on the man's vest, a falcon emblem painted red. Bishop saw it too. "You've gotta be kidding me." "Red Falcon," she said. "They're not gone." By the time they reached the convoy wreckage further down the valley, the sun was gone. Flashlights swept across twisted metal, burnt rubber, shattered glass. The cargo crates were gone. Only bodies remained, soldiers, researchers, stripped of gear. Luna crouched beside one of the vehicles, flashlight beam catching something half-melted into the dirt, a broken tag with serials beginning in EXF9. She froze. Bishop noticed. "You recognize that?" She swallowed hard. "Yeah, it's an experimental biocomposite, defense grade. You don't use this unless you're building something biological." He frowned. "Like a weapon." "Like something worse." Mason arrived, eyes scanning the site. "Report. Convoy destroyed, cargo stolen. Kill team was Red Falcon PMC," Luna said. "And whatever they took, it's not small arms." Mason cursed under his breath. "Intel said Falcon was dismantled months ago." "Intel was wrong," Luna replied. She looked around. The silence of the valley pressed in, broken only by the crackle of the burning wreck. Mason turned to her. "What do you think they wanted?" She met his eyes. "Not what who, the scientist's not here." Bishop blinked. "You think they took him?" Luna's jaw tightened. "They need him alive, which means we've still got a chance." They set up temporary shelter for the night. A cold camp, no lights, minimal comms. Bishop's team rotated watch. Luna sat by the edge of the perimeter, rifle resting across her knees, gaze fixed on the dark hills beyond. The stars overhead were painfully bright. Out here, the world always felt ancient and uncaring. Mason approached quietly, a cup of instant coffee in hand. "You ever sleep?" "Not well," she said. He handed her the cup. "You were right about the ambush. You saved lives today." She took a sip. "I don't want to make a habit of it." He studied her for a moment. "I read your file. You left the Marines because you didn't like what it turned you into, but you're still doing it." She looked at him, expression unreadable. "Difference is, now I choose when to pull the trigger." "Does that make it easier?" "No," she said softly. "It just makes it mine." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the wind move through the valley. Finally Mason said, "We move at dawn. If they've got the scientist, we'll track them north, but we're not equipped for prolonged pursuit." "I'll find him," Luna said. Mason frowned. "You make it sound like a promise." "It is." Dawn came gray and cold. They followed tire tracks through the canyon, cautious, quiet. Around midday, Luna's handheld pinged, heat signatures faint but moving fast, vehicles ahead. She climbed onto the ridge for a better view. Through binoculars, she saw two trucks cutting across the flats. One carried men with rifles, the other reinforced cargo bed, sealed. She could almost feel it, the same rhythm as before, the same pulse of inevitability. She keyed her radio. "Captain, visual on target convoy. Red Falcon insignia confirmed. Recommend intercept before they reach the border." "Copy. How many?" 10, maybe 12. 2 vehicles. They've got the scientist." Mason hesitated. "We don't have air cover or artillery if we hit them now." "They'll disappear if we don't." Bishop's voice broke in. "You're not thinking of charging them alone again, are you?" "Not alone," she said, "but fast." Silence, then Mason sigh. "All right, set it up." Luna watched the convoy crest a rise. The trucks were heading toward a ravine, narrow, defensible, perfect for an ambush. She smiled faintly. "Let's see how they like it." When the first truck entered the ravine, she gave the signal. Grenades arced from the ridge. The explosion flipped the lead vehicle. Gunfire erupted. The desert filled with sound again, chaotic, violent, alive. Bishop's team moved like clockwork, cutting through the mercenaries. Luna dropped 3 before her rifle jammed. She drew her sidearm, advancing through the dust. One merc turned toward her, panic in his eyes. You're the one from Titan." The words froze her mid-step. He recognized her. Before she could react, he raised his rifle. She fired first. He dropped. The fight ended as fast as it began. The second truck burned, its cargo torn open. Inside, empty cages. The scientist wasn't there. Mason joined her, scanning the scene. "Where the hell is he?" Luna's radio buzzed. A voice she hadn't heard in weeks. "Orion." "White, stand by. Satellite confirms Falcon chopper departing 5 clicks north. Your target, aboard." She turned toward the horizon. A black speck lifted into the air, growing smaller with every heartbeat. The mission wasn't over, not even close. She holstered her weapon, eyes hard. "Then we're not done." For the first time, Mason saw something in her expression that wasn't just determination. It was personal. He didn't ask why. He already knew. Because sometimes, ghosts don't rest until the fire that made them starts burning again. How far would you go to stop the past from repeating itself? The Falcon helicopter disappeared into the horizon, a black shape shrinking against the morning sun. Luna watched it until it became nothing but a speck in the glare, until the wind from its rotors faded, and the only sound left was her own heartbeat. Mason's voice cut through the radio. "We can't follow. That's across the demarcation line, no-fly zone. Command will never authorize it." Luna's jaw tightened. "Then don't ask them." He stared at her. You're talking about crossing into hostile territory without clearance, without support. That's suicide. Maybe, she said, but it's also the only chance we have to get him back before Falcon moves him again. White, listen to me. She turned away, already checking her gear. I'm done listening to people who calculate morality by grid coordinates. Bishop stepped closer, rifle slung. You really think one scientist is worth breaking every rule in the book? Her voice was quiet. I think saving one person sometimes keeps the world from losing 1,000. He looked at her for a long moment, then exhaled. You're insane. Probably, she said, but you're still coming, aren't you? He hesitated, then cursed under his breath. Yeah, guess I am. Mason shook his head. You two are going to get court-martialed. Then we'll file the paperwork when we get back. They left before noon. 3 vehicles, stripped down and fast. No flags, no markings, just dust in their wake as they crossed the unmarked border into the Badlands. The terrain was brutal, razorback ridges, canyons carved by centuries of wind, no roads except the ones made by desperate men. For hours, they followed the chopper's last heading, guided by faint heat signatures and broken calm bursts Luna intercepted through her uplink. Every mile brought silence, thicker, heavier, the kind that makes you start hearing your own thoughts again. Bishop broke it first. You ever wonder why you do this, why you keep walking back into fire? Luna didn't answer right away. She was staring at the map, tracing her finger along a valley marked in faded topography. Because sometimes fire is the only thing that keeps you warm. He huffed a quiet laugh. You sound like you've said that before. I have, she said softly. By late afternoon, the road turned to rock and sand. They ditched the vehicles and went on foot. Ahead, through shimmering heat, they saw it, a compound nestled against the cliffs, crude but fortified. Guard towers, floodlights, satellite uplink dishes. Falcon's forward base. Luna crouched behind a ridge, binoculars raised. At least 30 hostiles, possibly more inside. No sign of the scientist. Bishop adjusted his rifle. That's a lot of guns for a missing researcher. He's not missing, she said. He's property. Her eyes traced the fencing, the patrol routes, the open ground between cover. Every detail clicked into her mind like code aligning into logic. She'd seen this layout before, different continent, same purpose. Capture, control, exploit. She breathed out slowly. We'll go in after dark. Mason's voice came low from behind them. White, if we cross that fence, there's no going back. She didn't turn. There's no going back for him either. Night fell hard and silent. The desert turned silver under moonlight. Wind whispered across the sand like distant voices. Luna led the way, crawling through the dry grass toward the perimeter. Her body moved like a shadow, fluid, deliberate. The others followed, every sound amplified in the quiet. At the fence, she cut the wire carefully, rolled through, and motioned for the others to wait. She moved first, 2 guards near the generator shack, relaxed, talking softly. One suppressed round, then another. Both dropped before their cigarettes hit the dirt. Bishop gave a low whistle. You make that look easy. It never is, she murmured, stepping past the bodies. They breached the outer compound, clearing building by building. The interiors were cold, metallic, full of strange equipment, labs, containment units, racks of computers humming quietly. Then they found the cells. 5 of them, lined with reinforced glass. 4 were empty. The 5th held a man slumped against the wall, wrists bound, face bruised. The scientist. Luna rushed to the keypad, fingers flying across the controls. The lock disengaged with a hiss. He blinked up at her, eyes unfocused. Who are you? Friend, she said, we're getting you out. He shook his head weakly. You don't understand, they're not just after data, they're building something. She knelt beside him. What kind of something? His voice trembled. Adaptive biotech, AI-integrated tissue. They're trying to merge machine code with organic systems, weaponize regeneration. Bishop frowned. That's science fiction. No, Luna said. It's war evolution. The scientist grabbed her sleeve, panic in his voice. They have prototypes here, too. You have to destroy them if they leave this facility. The lights went red. Sirens wailed. They already know we're here, Bishop hissed. Then we finish it, Luna said. Gunfire erupted in the corridor. Falcon mercenaries poured in, firing in bursts, the air filled with sparks and noise. Luna dragged the scientist behind cover, returned fire with calm precision. Each shot was a decision. She'd stopped having time to regret. Exit route, Mason shouted. North side, she yelled back, service tunnel. They moved fast, fighting through the smoke. For every meter gained, two were lost in chaos. Then new sound. Something deeper, heavier, mechanical. A door at the far end burst open. Two figures stepped through, tall, armored, movements unnatural. Their faces hidden behind black visors, their limbs reinforced with metallic grafts. The scientist's voice broke. Prototypes run. One raised an arm. The sound that followed wasn't gunfire. It was a scream of compressed energy. The wall exploded behind them, showering debris. Luna ducked, dragging the scientist to the ground. Bishop suppressing fire. He fired 3 bursts, ineffective. The rounds hit but barely slowed them. They're wearing exocomposite plating, Luna shouted. Aim for joints, neck, underarms. She moved fast, rolling to a new angle, fired at the thinner plates between armor seams. Sparks flew. One prototype staggered. The second charged. Bishop tackled it, both crashing into a console. The machine twisted, backhanded him across the room. Luna felt something sharp inside her snap, not fear, not panic, the old rage, the one she'd promised to bury. She emptied her magazine into the thing's faceplate, advancing step by step until it stopped moving. The first one lunged at her. She swung the butt of her rifle into its visor, then jammed a grenade into the joint of its armor. Bishop down. She kicked off and dove as it detonated. The shockwave knocked her sideways, ringing in her ears. When she looked up, the prototype was half missing. The corridor was on fire. Go, she shouted, hauling the scientist to his feet. Move. They sprinted through the smoke, down the service tunnel, out into cold desert air. Behind them, the facility burned. They didn't stop until dawn painted the sky pale blue. The scientist sat trembling on a rock, face streaked with soot and blood. Mason called for exfil, satellite link, coordinates transmitted. Bishop dropped beside Luna, gasping for breath. Next time you pick a quieter job. She almost smiled. Next time you stay in the truck. He laughed, then winced, clutching his ribs. You ever gonna tell me how someone who fixes computers became this? She looked out over the horizon, eyes distant. No one becomes this. You just stop pretending you're not. Mason approached, lowering his radio. Commands furious. You know that, right? Unauthorized incursion, cross-border violation, destruction of classified assets. Luna didn't look at him, but we got him out. He sighed. Yeah, you did. They stood there for a long time, silent except for the wind. Finally, Mason said, they'll come for you when we get back. Debrief, investigation, maybe worse. I know. You don't seem worried. I've been through worse. He studied her face, the exhaustion, the calm that bordered on emptiness. You ever think about just stopping, walking away again? She looked at him, a faint sadness behind her eyes. I tried, it didn't take. The sound of approaching rotors echoed across the desert. Extraction inbound. As the helicopter descended, dust swirling around them, Luna turned to watch the rising smoke from the destroyed base. Somewhere in that wreckage, pieces of those prototypes still burned, part machine, part human. and she wondered, not for the first time, if maybe that was all she'd become. Half something human, half something built for war. The helicopter lifted them into the sky. The desert shrank beneath them, a patchwork of light and shadow. The scientist leaned toward her, voice quiet. "You saved me, but you don't look relieved." Luna watched the sunrise bleed into the horizon. "Because I didn't save myself." He didn't reply, he didn't have to. Bishop leaned back in his seat, eyes half closed. "What now?" She answered without looking away from the window. "Now, we wait for whoever's next to underestimate us." Her reflection in the glass looked like someone else entirely. Hard eyes, calm face, a ghost who'd learned to wear a smile. For a long time, she said nothing. Then softly, almost to herself, "Sometimes survival isn't strength, it's just refusal to die." What happens when the mission isn't about enemies anymore, but about who you're becoming in the process? 3 days after the extraction, Luna White was sitting in a windowless room deep beneath a government facility that didn't officially exist. The air smelled of coffee gone cold and recycled air conditioning. The fluorescent lights above her hummed faintly, the kind of sound that gets under your skin after hours of silence. Across the table sat 3 people, a colonel in uniform, a lawyer in gray, and a man she recognized instantly, Orion, her handler. The colonel spoke first. "You crossed an international border without clearance, engaged hostile forces, destroyed a facility of interest to 3 allied intelligence services." Luna met his stare evenly. "We recovered the hostage. We neutralized Red Falcon assets. We stopped the spread of experimental biotech weapons. You're welcome." The lawyer sighed, clicking his pen. "You also compromised diplomatic channels and blew an ongoing surveillance operation." Orion's tone was calm but edged with fatigue. "They're saying you acted on emotion, White, that you went rogue." "Emotion," she said softly. "You mean conscience." "Call it what you want," the colonel said. "You don't get to decide when to start or end wars." "No," Luna replied, "but I seem to be the only one willing to end the right ones." Silence heavy. Orion leaned forward. "They want me to cut you loose, Luna, say you're unstable, that you've crossed too many lines." She smiled faintly. "And what do you think?" He hesitated. "I think you've seen too much to go back, but you're losing your anchor. Every time you go out there, you come back a little less, you." Her eyes flicked toward the mirror on the wall, where she knew others were watching. "Maybe that's the price of being useful." The colonel closed his file. "Effective immediately. You're suspended from active field operations pending review." Luna didn't react. "So I wait here until you decide what I am." "You'll be relocated, evaluated." "By who?" "By people qualified to assess psychological stability." She stood slowly. "Let me save you the trouble. I'm not stable, but I'm effective, and right now you need effective more than sane." The colonel rose. "That's not your decision." "No," she said quietly. "It's yours. Just remember, when Red Falcon resurfaces, and they will, the stable ones won't be enough." She turned and walked out before they could stop her. They sent her to recovery housing, a sterile apartment in D.C. with security cameras hidden behind mirrors and psychologists who asked too many questions. She played along, answered softly, smiled where appropriate. But at night she sat by the window, watching the city lights, feeling the weight of distance. It had been months since Titan Base, and yet sometimes she could still smell the dust, still hear the screams. She wasn't built for walls. One night she found a letter slid under her door. No seal, no sender, just 2 words written on plain paper. "They're back." Her heart stilled. She tore it open. Inside, a flash drive, coordinates, satellite images, shipment routes through Eastern Europe leading toward an unmarked facility near the Black Sea. Red Falcon insignia, faintly visible on crates. She stared at the screen for a long time, pulse steady, mind racing. Then she made a choice. Again. 2 days later, she was in Poland under another name, another contract, moving quietly through the web of shipping lanes she knew too well. She didn't wait for clearance, didn't tell Orion. If she was going to be erased anyway, she'd choose what to do with her final act. The trail led to a decommissioned steel plant outside Gdansk, now a front for humanitarian logistics. Through her scope, Luna saw the truth. Armed guards, unmarked trucks, containers loaded with biosealed tanks. Falcon was moving again, faster than before. She spoke softly into her mic. Facility confirmed, sending live feed. Silence, no response. She tried again. Orion, do you copy? Nothing. Static filled her ear. Then a voice, distorted, unfamiliar. You shouldn't be here, White. Her stomach tightened. Who is this? Someone who knows you better than you think. Leave now. This operation isn't yours anymore. She froze. The channel was encrypted, level only Orion should have. How did you get this frequency? Same way you did, the voice said, by breaking rules. Then it cut off. She waited until nightfall. The sky was heavy with storm clouds, wind cutting through rusted structures. She moved in through the East Service tunnels, just like she had a Titan, every step measured, every shadow memorized. Inside, machines hummed softly, cleaner, more advanced than anything she'd seen in the desert. Rows of glass tanks glowed faintly blue, filled with viscous fluid. Inside them floated silhouettes, humanoid but not human. Synthetic tissue threaded with metallic veins, breathing, moving. Luna's breath hitched. Falcon hadn't been rebuilding weapons. They were rebuilding people. One of the containment pods flickered. A pale face turned toward her, eyes opening, blank, artificial, almost her own. She stumbled back. No. The resemblance was uncanny, the jawline, the scar by the temple. A clone, a replica, a weapon wearing her face. Her comm crackled again. The same distorted voice. Now you understand why they wanted you out of the field. She spun, weapon raised. Who are you? The voice laughed softly, too familiar. Think of me as a newer model. A figure stepped out from the shadows. A woman in black combat gear, her movements eerily precise. The same height, the same face, the same eyes. Luna stared, gun steady but heart racing. What the hell did they do? They copied you, the other said calmly. Your combat data, neural profiles, every decision you ever made during Titan. You were the prototype. Luna's voice was a whisper. You're lying. Am I? They wanted the perfect operator, loyal, lethal, emotionless. You were too human, too unstable, so they removed the flaw. Her chest tightened. Emotion isn't a flaw. The clone smiled faintly. Tell that to the people you killed. The words hit harder than any bullet. Luna stepped back, mind spinning. Everything, the debriefings, the tests, the monitoring, hadn't been oversight. It had been data mining. The other woman took a slow step forward. You're obsolete, Luna. I'm what comes next. Luna exhaled, a slow, steady breath. Then what happens when the upgrade malfunctions? The clone raised her weapon. Then it gets recycled. Gunfire erupted. Luna dove behind a crate, glass shattering overhead. She rolled, fired 3 rounds, hit nothing but shadows. The clone was fast, too fast, predicting her moves like a mirror in combat. She switched tactics, threw a flashbang, pivoted left, fired low. 1 round caught the clone's shoulder. Sparks burst where blood should have been. Guess they still haven't figured out how to make pain optional, Luna said. The clone's voice was colder now. Neither have you. They clashed hand to hand, metal against muscle, precision against instinct. Each strike was like fighting herself, the same rhythm, the same aggression. But Luna had one thing her copy didn't. hesitation born of humanity. And sometimes, that hesitation made you unpredictable. When the clone went for a chokehold, Luna let it happen just long enough to draw a knife and drive it upward into the synthetic's chest. Electric arcs danced across the clone's armor. Its eyes flickered. Luna held it there, breathing hard. "You're not me." The clone's voice faltered, distorted. "No, you're worse." Then it collapsed. She stood over the fallen body, chest heaving, the weight of realization pressing down like gravity. They'd used her not as an asset but as a template, a blueprint for something inhuman. She destroyed the servers, torched the lab, and walked out into the rain as the steel plant burned behind her, another ghost erased from the map. Orion found her the next day in a safe house outside Warsaw. He looked older, tired, guilt flickering behind his calm. "You found it," he said quietly. "Tell me it wasn't you," she said. "It wasn't," he said, "but it was us, the higher levels. They used your combat telemetry from Titan, said it could save lives, make better soldiers. I didn't know they'd gone this far." She stared at him, eyes hollow. "You helped turn me into a weapon twice, first with blood, then with code." "I never wanted." "You wanted results," she said sharply. "You got them." He lowered his gaze. "The program been shut down officially." "Officially," she echoed, "meaning someone else will pick it up when it's convenient." He didn't deny it. Luna looked out the window. Rain streaked the glass like tears she didn't have left. "Tell them I'm done." Orion hesitated. "You walk away now, they'll bury you. No papers, no pension, no record. You'll vanish for real this time." "Good," she said. "Maybe I was never supposed to exist." She walked past him, into the gray morning, leaving him with nothing but silence and the faint echo of her boots fatting down the hall. That night she stood on a cliff overlooking the sea. Waves crashed below, wind whipped her hair loose. Somewhere behind her, the world kept spinning, files being filed, wars being planned, machines being built. And somewhere ahead, the horizon stretched endless and empty. She closed her eyes and whispered to the wind, "If they can copy my body, my skills, my mind, then maybe the only thing left that's truly mine is the part that refuses to obey." The waves answered in thunder. And Luna White, the woman who once just fixed computers, walked into the darkness again, ready to decide one last time what kind of ghost she wanted to be. They said she disappeared. No record, no forwarding trail, no trace on any database. Just a quiet erasure. A ghost deleted from the system she once defended. But ghosts don't vanish. They wait. 6 months after the Warsaw incident, in a small town carved between the Black Sea cliffs, a woman calling herself Elara Holt repaired fishing drones for a living. She wore old gloves, worked with salt-stung hands, and kept to herself. Every morning before sunrise, she'd walk the docks, breathing in the salt and diesel, watching the first light cut through the fog. No one here knew what she'd been. No one asked. And she liked it that way. She thought the silence might finally let her rest. Until the day the war came to her again. It started with the sound of an engine, a black SUV pulling into the dockyard, too new, too clean for this place. A man stepped out, crisp suit under a heavy coat. She recognized the walk before she saw his face. Orion. Her pulse didn't change. She kept working, tightening a drone's intake valve. He approached quietly. "You're hard to find." That was the idea. He studied her face. She looked thinner, harder, but there was peace in her stillness, like a soldier who'd finally found somewhere to die standing up. "You've been off-grid 6 months," he said. "No signal, no accounts, nothing. Then suddenly, a flagged transmission hits one of our servers from this region, encrypted with your old cipher." She didn't look up. "Wasn't me." "I didn't think so," he said. "That's why I came myself." She stopped turning the wrench. You should have let the next person handle it. Luna. Don't call me that. He sighed. Fine, Elara then. Someone's using your ID to access a dead program, Project Argus, the clone network. Her eyes froze. I thought it was gone. So did I, but someone brought it back online. And whoever it is, they're moving the remaining prototypes west. They've already taken 2 facilities. Luna finally looked at him. You're saying they're using them. I'm saying they're deploying them. The wind off the sea howled through the metal frames. Orion said softly, You built the code, Luna. You know its flaws better than anyone. If those things go fully autonomous, they won't stop. He nodded. Then I need you to help me stop them. She turned away, eyes fixed on the horizon. You don't need me. You need what's left of me. Maybe that's enough, he said quietly. For a long moment she didn't move. The sea crashed, steady and cruel. Finally she said, One mission, no chain of command, no witnesses. Orion nodded once, agreed. She slipped the gloves off, wiped her hands on her coveralls and exhaled. Then let's finish what they started. 2 nights later, she was airborne again. Cold air through open cargo doors. The city lights below like a constellation of memory. She wore old gear, nothing official, no name patch, no emblem. Just a mat rifle and a pack of silent regrets. The target, a decommissioned airfield in northern Romania. Falcon remnants had reassembled, fusing biotech with unmanned drones, a merging of flesh and circuitry. Their plan, autonomous strike systems that could decide when to kill. Her plan ended. She and Orion landed a mile out under cloud cover. The facility loomed ahead, floodlights sweeping the tarmac, towers outlined against a dying moon. Orion checked his rifle. You sure about this? No, she said, but I've never been sure of anything that mattered. They slipped through the perimeter, silent as breath. Inside, the hangar was alive with movement. Dozens of half-human, half-machine forms standing in rows, motionless but humming. Their eyes glowed faint blue, waiting for activation. Luna felt her stomach twist. It was like looking into a mirror factory, reflections of war built to outlive the people who fought it. At the center of the room, a woman in a lab coat typed on a console, oblivious. The scientist, one of Falcon's originals. Luna moved closer, rifle raised. Step away from the terminal. The woman froze, then turned slowly. Miss White, she said, smiling faintly, or should I call you version 1? Luna's breath went still. You should call me the mistake you didn't learn from. The woman tilted her head. We didn't build you wrong, we just built you early. You proved what could be done, emotion fused with instinct. But emotion is a virus. It compromises efficiency. Luna stepped closer, gun steady. Efficiency kills empathy, and without empathy, all you're left with is machines killing for logic. The woman's voice was calm. Machines don't start wars, people do. Luna fired. The shot hit the console, sparks burst. The screens flickered, alarms blaring. You're right, Luna said, and some people know when to stop them. The woman lunged for the emergency key. Luna shot again, clean, center mass. The scientist dropped. But the damage was done. The system was already booting. Red lights flared. One by one, the prototypes opened their eyes, turning toward her, synchronized. Orion! I see it, he shouted, pulling grenades from his belt. They scattered, moving faster than human reflex. The first one charged, steel fingers slashing through the air. Luna ducked, firing point-blank, sparks erupting. Another came from behind. Orion tackled it, both crashing into metal crates. Fall back, she shouted. Go, he yelled, firing wild bursts to cover her. She ran toward the central power conduit, shots echoing behind her. The main reactor pulsed with light. One overload could bring the whole place down. She tore open the panel, wired the charge, her hands shaking from adrenaline and old ghosts. Orion's voice over comm strained, fatting. "Luna, get out now." She pressed the trigger. Not yet. The countdown blinked red, 30 seconds. She turned back. Orion was pinned beneath debris, blood streaking his temple. The prototypes closed in. She sprinted toward him, ripping at the wreckage. "Come on." He shook his head weakly. "You know you can't." "Shut up." She gripped his arm, straining, dragging him free just enough to see his face. He smiled faintly. "You always were terrible at orders. Don't you dare die on me." He looked past her at the rising glow. "Then run." She did, half carrying, half dragging him toward the exit. The hangar shook, alarms wailing. The prototypes swarmed, reaching through smoke. 10 seconds. She fired until the rifle clicked empty, then kept going, screaming through the chaos, her voice drowned by thunder. 5 seconds. She pushed Orion through the door, then turned, staring at the machines, those faces, her faces, rising through the fire. "Goodbye," she whispered. The explosion hit like judgment. She woke to silence. Cold rain, the metallic taste of smoke. The hangar was gone, a crater where it once stood. The air smelled of ash and ozone. Beside her, Orion lay motionless. She pressed her hand to his neck. A pulse faint but there. She exhaled, shaking. The dawn came slowly, gray and exhausted. The world was quiet again, like it had exhaled with her. She sat beside Orion's body, watching the light creep across the wreckage. For the first time in years, she didn't feel hunted or haunted. Just empty. Maybe that was peace. She heard footsteps behind her. A voice, soft, familiar. "I told them you wouldn't stay buried." She turned. Mason stood there, rifle slung, uniform different now, no insignia, no rank. "They sent you?" she asked. He shook his head. "I came because I owed you." They stood in silence for a while, wind pulling at their coats. He looked out at the ruins. "You stopped them." "For now," she said, "but the code's still out there, it always will be." He nodded. "Then what now?" She looked east, where the sun broke through the clouds. "I disappear again. Maybe find someplace quiet. Maybe find out what I'm supposed to be without a target." Mason smiled faintly. "You think you'll ever figure that out?" She shrugged. "Maybe that's not the point." He turned to leave, then stopped. "You know they'll never give you credit for this." "I don't need it." "Then what do you need?" She thought for a long time before answering. "To remember that I'm still human, even if I have to keep proving it to myself." He nodded once and walked away, leaving her with the wind, the ruins, and the rising light. Later that day, Luna stood at the edge of the sea again. Same waves, same gray horizon. She closed her eyes and whispered, not to God, not to the ghosts, but to herself. "I was just a contractor. I fix things, machines, systems, but maybe I was supposed to fix something else too." She looked at her hands, scarred and steady. Hands that had built and destroyed, saved and damned. "Maybe some wounds don't heal," she said softly. "They just teach you how to stop bleeding." The tide came in, washing away her footprints. And somewhere beyond that horizon, in the quiet that follows endings, a signal flickered to life. A faint transmission carrying her name. But this time she didn't answer. Because sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.